Yeah, hi, I'd like to place an order for delivery. Can I get a sesame chicken combo with pork fried rice, please? Hello? All jokes aside, or most of the jokes aside, it's Halloween time! And I wanted to discuss a game called Detention that Steam recommended to me. Detention is tagged as a horror game. I've heard nothing about this game, but I was immediately intrigued by the game's art and story concept. Quickly though, like the feeling of accidentally ingested rancid milk, hesitation rose within me due to the popularity of the walking simulator ilk. Alas, I dove in headfirst to give this game a sporting chance. I was hoping it would be a concise 2D love letter to survival horror games of old, much like The Lone Survivor. Detention's influences are just as obvious. Well, it isn't. It is more akin to a traditional adventure game, and there's nothing wrong with that. However, there is something wrong. I think Detention heavily plays and stylistically resembles The Cat Lady, a psychological horror-themed adventure indie from back in 2012 that I found surprisingly interesting in how it tackled the theme of major depression, certainly more than other games. I gave it the benefit of the doubt and I generally enjoyed it at the time, but ultimately that game and Detention suffer from some of the same problems. Art. For the most part, the art is a lovely grim palette of the mixed media type, giving the game a very dingy, depressing, and occasionally disturbing atmosphere. The assets also seem very faithful to the roughly 50s Taiwanese time period, as far as I would know. I'll give bonus points to any game that's got a working rotary phone. It is also very obviously cribbing from games you'll remember from the glory days, like Silent Hill, Fatal Frame, and a whole lot of Siren. There's also a genuinely creepy creature design. The audio is very nicely done too. There's some interesting ghoul sounds, and the whole design is appropriately minimalistic. It's there enough to notice it, but it doesn't ever distract. The music is a nice effort too, again inspired by Silent Hill and Siren's ambient work. It starts out great, but ultimately gets less creative as the game goes on, and it all tends to blur together. I would consider the art the highlight of the package. Even better if you can forgive some genuinely awful walk cycles. Which I cannot. Come on guys, it's 2017, and a character's walk cycle shouldn't resemble a Newgrounds Flash cartoon from the early 2000s. Aside from the occasional disturbing image or concept, the game simply is not very scary. Don't open your eyes, cause I might freak out if you do that. Don't do that. The horror theme seems to be there mostly to enhance how we're supposed to feel about the game's story. I know this is going to be what redeems this experience in the eyes of some gamers. It's hardly subtle about thrusting you in the middle of a real period of martial law in Taiwan around the 1950s called the White Terror and lasted for nearly 40 years. People claim the game is historically accurate for whatever that means, but I'm not going to go too in-depth with it beyond what the game represents. Detention paints the events like a real-life Fahrenheit 451, complete with the burning of books that threaten the establishment, paranoia and spying on neighbors, executions, and the suppression of all kinds of feels. You thought Trump was bad. So you'd think, sure, it's a solid setting for a horror game in the literal sense, especially since it's made by a Taiwanese developer. It could provide some interesting insights. Well, this is also at heart a ghost story, though. It ropes in a secondary theme of Buddhist and Taoist folklore, and I get the feeling by telling you that I've already spoiled what is actually going on here because it is that predictable. I will say the reveal isn't pitched as a presumptuously effective Shyamalan twist, but one that feels inevitable and endlessly torturous. So kudos to that at least. Also, good luck getting that good ending. I think it might even be broken sometimes. On top of all this, there is another story element that desperately tries to explain the protagonist's motivations. Plays out shockingly like bullshit family drama you've heard 100 times before. Oh look, everything's daddy's fault. Where have I heard that before? The character's motivations in this story just did not gel with me. I have such trouble at home. Daddy's a drunk. I want to rebel and not be like my mom. Sure, we live under an incredibly oppressive regime that could see me absconded with in the middle of the night for walking past a federal monument without appreciating it enough, but oh god, I just want to scribble down pretentious indie film dialogue about why I can't fuck my guidance counselor. A relationship that is very oddly moralized in this story, I might add. I also get the feeling that people could weasel out of these criticisms by mentioning, no bruh, it's like a metaphor for the society, and vice versa, ultimately making it kind of pointless. It doesn't go into any meaningful psychology of people living under this oppressive regime, and it too often feels like teen drama. Only this would be an edgy, hot topic scene girl colored drama. By the way, this game is maybe 3 hours long, if that. They're tackling family drama, Buddhist ghost lore, and historically accurate genocides. Biting off a little more you can chew? On top of that, for such a short game, it is amazing how awful the pacing is. The beginning is underdeveloped, the middle ends just when it's getting good, and the ending is like pulling teeth. I found the story to be wildly pretentious, poorly paced, and the few sparks of brilliance there are ultimately extinguished by the overall experience. Ooh, oh, you hear that? Oh, sounds like I could write Detention dialogue. But hey, what do I know? I'm just a dum-dum. And now on to talk about what I'm appropriately mentioning last, because it seems to be the last thing on the developers' minds. Gameplay. All the attempts at heady themes here are bolstered by gameplay that is no more challenging than a rousing game of
Mr. Bucket, the false prophet of my mouth, Mr. Bucket.
This is the most disappointing aspect of Detention, and had it been more fleshed out, I'd feel more comfortable recommending it. I've even got to give credit to the smooth click and drag interface, something a lot of adventure games screw up. However, every mechanic they introduce is just left as a cool idea waiting to be developed. For example, there's no combat, of course, but there is what could be a pretty neat, simple says it best, stealth mechanic. You can hold your breath for a short duration so the ghosts can't see you walking past them. You can even use the elongated classroom designs to skirt around them entirely if need be. Yeah, that was almost intense. Oh wait, I don't have any health or resources to maintain? Well, what happens if I die? Oh, I get an admittedly cool tutorial, but then I just go right back here. Oh, okay, so there's nothing scary about any enemy encounter, nor is there any reason to play carefully. Got it. Oh, look, you can distract a ghost with a bowl of rice to get him to move. Nice, okay. Done with that section, you'll never really need to be doing that again. Hey, a locked door. Oh look, here's the key, 2 doors away from where it needs to be used. Okay, puzzle section done, check. You see how the game design feels so superfluous here? The middle chapter I mentioned briefly before is where the game gets a little more interesting by letting you branch out and explore, God forbid. Here there might be one puzzle that requires a little bit of thinking, and potentially one that will make the tone deaf among you want to rat out your neighbor for being a dissident. Even here, I'm getting that old familiar feeling, though. By the end of the game, enemies are absent altogether, and it devolves into this pretentious, overly drawn-out sequence that the worst walking simulators have to offer, and it's really a shame. I will give this game credit for actually attempting to make a game. Even if I'll argue that the gameplay is mostly superficial, it really isn't a walking simulator per se. There's still more gameplay here than in some games of this genre. There are some great moments in this experience, but it should be more than just an experience. I've seen more from even these kinds of games. Oh, and if you are going to crib aesthetically from some of the survival horror greats, you may as well take some of its gameplay. If you like blood-curdling horror and survival gameplay that's equally as scary, then this probably isn't for you. If you want a dark and brooding interactive story, have at it. Maybe you'll love it. Or don't. I really don't care. Well, Coffee might care. So anyway, if you do decide to take the whole $12 MSRP plunge, let me know why I'm wrong and a fucking retard in the comments below. Oh, and of course, don't forget to like or dislike the video. If you like to get notifications on future uploads, be sure to hit the subscribe button, and then hit the little bell next to the subscribe button if you want to actually get the notifications. And don't forget to leave your clean urine sample and blood sample with the DEA before December 15th of this year. Oh, and